Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rachel Klein and I will be your presenter today. We are going to be discussing emailing donation statements. So we are going to walk through the setup for emailing, how to access your email provider to get those statements out, and then we're also going to look at the actual process from start to finish of selecting your people for the donation statements, and then also how to get those statements sent out via email for those who have an email address, and then how to print the remaining statements for those that don't have an email address on file in the software. The version today we are using is our newest version of Church Windows. It's 23.21.0. If you don't have this version yet and you're on support, feel free to give us a call. We can get you in touch with the newest version. And if you're not on support but want to get updated, please give us a call and we're happy to help you do that. I am following a document today. So in the GoToWebinar toolbar, if you expand the handout section, there is the emailing donation statements document. You can access it right there if you want to print it out for when you go to do this. It's pretty straightforward. The hardest part with setting up emailing for donation statements is knowing your email provider's information. That's really going to be the biggest hurdle. Once you figure out the correct server information so you can access your email, you obviously have to know your password for your email address, which can be tricky too because a lot of times all that stuff's saved these days. But that's going to be the biggest hurdle, is having those credentials figured out. Once you do, then all you have to do is plug it into the software and the emails will send. Okay. Feel free to ask questions. It's just me today. Call volume's picking up like we always do end of the year and in January. But if you have a question, type it in. I will get to it once I'm done presenting. We'll do a little Q&A at the end. We also might go a little bit over time. The document's like 5 pages long, so we might be looking closer to 25, 30 minutes. So if you have to leave, that's fine. I am recording this. I'll have it cleaned up and I'll put it on the website for you in our new resource center for you to watch later today, or share it with someone you think might find it helpful. All right, let's get started here. So biggest thing to remember with emailing is that in donations, people can give as a giving unit, meaning they're checked gives with family, or they can give individually. All right, so if someone gives individually, obviously their email is going to be pulled from the membership module if that's where they were originally entered, or it's going to be pulled from the donations module. Okay. Or if you have someone who gives as a family, a lot of couples want to give together. They're both checked gives with family. If that's the case for a giving unit, the statement is going to be emailed to the primary person in that family. All right, so that's going to be the person with a directory report order of number 1. All right, and that's all at the top of the document explained for you. So if they were originally entered through membership, the email from membership is going to be pulled from there. If they are a donations giver, so if you have someone that you've only entered in the donations side of the software and you want to get an email put in for them, to enter that, you can go into donations, go into manage givers, and then right here across the top you have a phone and email tab. This is where you can then put in what their donation statement needs to be. Okay, so again, if they're a donations giver, come in here, find them. They're going to say DON here in this box, and then you can put their email address right in here for where you want their statement to go. Okay. Again, if they're from membership, over there in their customized fields where you put in their cell phone or their birthday, that type of things, that's where the email will be pulled from. Okay. All right, let's talk about setting up here on step 1. So I'm going to go right into donation statement. When you come into donation statement, if you do not change anything here on step 1, that means anybody who has giving within this date range is going to get a statement. Okay, something really important to remember. Most people need to print a donation statement for anyone who has giving within this date range. That's the default criteria. Of course, you can come in here, you can change it if you have other criteria you want to edit or add, But again, that's the default. So you can simply click next through this screen if that fits what you need. Also up here at the top, by default, it is going to include inactive people. The only inactive people that are going to be included for the donation statements is going to be people who gave within this date range. So it's not going to pull all the inactive people from years and years ago. It's only going to pull inactive people that have giving again in the date range. Okay? Here's your sort tab. Keep in mind you can decide for the people who are printed. So again, you can email the people who have emails and then print for the ones who don't. This is where you set that sort order for the people who are going to have theirs printed. So I'm going to just leave this on giver name. If you want more information on this step 1 screen, not specific to emailing, we do have that information out on our website, churchwindows.com. So if you're wanting detailed information on the query builder and things like that, head out there to watch this. Today we're really just going to focus on the emailing aspect. All right, so a couple things about step 2. Again, this is your statement layout up at the top. This is going to be what your statement is going to look like. All right, when you email a donation statement, the software creates a PDF of their specific donation statement and then it attaches it to the email itself that people receive. Okay, so make sure you're choosing the statement layout that you want. Again, if you want to customize this, put your logo on it, go in and change settings here. All of that information, again, is out on the website. Now, let's go here to this email tab. This is really the focus of what we're going to do today. You have to set up your church windows to be able to communicate with your email provider. Okay, so for today's example and the example in the document, we are using a Gmail account. A lot of people use Gmail. If you are using something else, you may need to contact your email provider directly to figure out their specific server information. So Church Windows can essentially go up, knock on that door, and with your email password, open that door for Church Windows to be able to send out the statements. Okay? So let me show you specifically what I'm referring to. I have this all set up so we don't have to start from scratch. But on the email tab, this email settings, you can have multiple settings in here if you have multiple people who are wanting to email out of Church Windows. Once you have someone's email set up, you'll see the different names here. You can call it whatever you want. I think it makes sense to title the setting based on whose email address it is. That seems logical to me, but you can call it whatever you want. I'll show you that in a minute. And then you just have to make sure once they're set up, you're choosing the corresponding email setting you want to use when you're sending out statements. Okay? So if you're starting from scratch, you would hit this little green plus sign to add your email's server information. Because I've already set this up for you guys to save time, I'm just going to hit the pencil. It's going to open up the same window, but everything is going to already be filled in here for me. Okay, so the display name, again, that's what I was just referring to when you hit the down arrow. That's the name you're going to see to select the specific email setting. Outgoing mail server. Let me hit the pencil here so you can see this. This is specific to your email account that you're using. So because I'm using Gmail, Gmail's SMTP host address is smtp.gmail.com. The port number is 587, and then under Use SSL, this stands for Secure Socket Layer, Gmail has to be set to explicit. Okay, you have a couple different options. If you're using Gmail, this is what you want to use. If you're using something else, you're going to have to do some research. You can do a simple internet search. A lot of people use GoDaddy as well. You can just search GoDaddy. All types of different things there you would need to look up specific to your email provider, what your host address is, what your port number, and then what SSL you need to use. Okay, here at Church Windows, we are not going to know what every single email provider's SMTP host information is. All right, a lot of times if I'm talking to someone, I can help them Google it to look for it. But honestly, the easiest way is to just give them a call or go to their website and look on their support page. They are going to have information for the SMTP server information. Okay? Once you get all this in here, you have to perform a connection test. That is Church Windows going out and seeing if it can find that server. Once it can, it lets you know it was successful. But just because it finds the server doesn't necessarily mean it's able to send out the email. There's another step that we have to go through. Okay, but this is a step in the right direction. So we're going to say okay. Now I can say okay because this button is lit up in green. And now it's going to take me down to my from email. So this is the email you are wanting to send your statements from, okay? Obviously, I have a Gmail server information, so the email I'm using is going to be a Gmail. If you don't have one in the list yet, you need to hit the plus sign. If you have one in and you need to edit it or verify the information, simply hit the little pencil. And as you can see, this is a demo or a test email address that we've set up for today. So Church Windows email test.gmail.com. That's correct. Really double check your spelling on this too. If you have just the smallest error, the smallest typo, it's not going to have the right credentials and Church Windows isn't going to be able to find your email to send through. Okay. Once you get your from email in, it's going to automatically fill in your username, and that is simply just your email address. Okay. Church Windows email test.com. And then your password. This is your password associated with this specific email address. This is not your Church Windows password, okay? So if you are sitting at home and you are going to go out to the internet and check your email, so you go to gmail.com and you log in, that password that you would type in to access your email account, that has to go here. That's what gives Church Windows permission to access your account, okay? And we have this awesome new feature finally, this little eyeball. If you click that, it will show you what you've typed in. We haven't had that before, and we've had a lot of people who thought they had the right password, but they didn't. So the little eyeball, if you want to see what you have there, it will actually show you, all right? Last thing, your reply to email address. By default, it's going to fill in your from email address. So if people get their statement, they hit reply, it's automatically going to go to here. If you want to change it, say you have a donation statements at lutheranchurch.com or whatever it might be that you use specifically for statements, and you want them to be able to reply to, say, Betty, who does the donations module, you could change this and put Betty's email in here. So if anybody replied, say they had questions, they could just hit reply and it would go to a different email address. Again, it's optional. You don't have to do it. All right. Also, this screen has a bunch of little question marks here. If you click on the little question marks, it's going to give you more information about each thing that you're needing to fill in. But again, hopefully you have this document with you and it's really clear on the document as well. Okay, so once you get all of this information filled in for your email provider, you're going to hit Send Test Email. You have to choose an email address that you have access to verify that the test email is successful. By default, it's going to fill in the email that you're already using as your from email. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm good with that. System's going to work. You're either going to get a success message or you're going to get a message that it was unsuccessful. Okay. It's successful here. That's great. So I'm going to say okay. And then you're going to need to go out and check to verify that you did in fact get that email. Okay. Now that my send test email button is green, I know I'm good to go. I can say okay. And now my email settings are saved in here. All right. Let's go into my account and see if I got my email yet. Here it is. Here is my test email. So this is that Gmail account I have opened up. Let's get rid of this. And as you can see, here's my test email from Church Windows. I received it, so I know the emailing is working successful for my test. All right. Now, something else I want to point out rather quickly, if you are using a Gmail account, there are 2 specific settings you have to have configured in a particular way for Church Windows to be able to access your Gmail. Gmail has several security measures in place that on purpose will block outside sources, outside software, programs like Church Windows, third-party access to be able to get into my email. Okay? If you're using Gmail, you have to come up here and you have to go into manage your Google account. All right, 2 things that have to be configured properly here under security. The first thing is 2-step verification. For Church Windows to be able to email, this has to be set to off. Okay. Also, if you scroll further down, less secure apps. This has to be turned on. So you have to allow what Google calls less secure apps to be able to access your email. Anything other than Google, Google considers a less secure app. Okay, so keep that in mind. This has to be turned on for Church Windows to successfully email through Gmail. Okay, you could turn it off and on if you wish. Sometimes Gmail thinks it's being helpful and they will automatically turn this off for you. So if you know you have the right password and the correct credentials and your test email still isn't going through, it's probably because they updated your security and they changed this back to off. Make sure less secure app access is on. All right. All right, let's jump back here, back to step 2. Couple things I want to point out on this screen. You do have the option to add additional attachments. This is new in the last year or 2. Say the pastor wants to write a letter, or you have a thank you note you want to send out, or thanking pledgers. You can type that up, save it as a PDF, attach it here, okay? Global email message. This also has to be created. You have to have this filled in. This is what the actual email message itself people receive is going to show. So it's going to have a subject line, and it's also going to have a message. So this is where when someone gets an email, this is the subject line, this is the body of the message itself, and then their donation statement is then attached to this message. So this is a good place where people say thank you for your ongoing support, or you could put in the subject line 2021 donation statement so people know what it is, and then a nice message thanking them and telling them. I really recommend too putting in here your 2021 donation statement is attached. I think it's helpful to make sure people know where to look to then find their statement. But again, up to you. But remember, you have to have this filled in as well. Okay. If you want, you can also send out a email sample if you want to see what that looks like. If I say send here, I'm going to choose, my Church Windows email test, and I'm just going to write in here, this is a test. I'm going to say send email. It says it was successful. I'll say okay, I can close out of here, and I'm going to go back into my Gmail account, and then here's my sample, and then here's my PDF attachment. So I can open the message. Here is what my global email message is. Here's what my message line was. It just said end of, or my subject line just says end of year. And then here's my attachment. So I can click on it, and then here is their PDF donation statement, which is in that template, that windowed envelope layout that I picked back on the first tab. So this is a nice way for you to kind of double check things. It's going to be sample data. It's not going to be a real person. It's going to be somebody Church Windows programmers made up, but allows you to really get an idea of what your donation statement's going to look like when you send it to someone. Okay. All right. So if this all looks good, you can come back up at the top to your Options tab. Make sure all of these settings are the way you want them. Again, if you want more information on this, go to our Resource Center and you can watch it, the webinar on donation statements. Now, something I want to point out to you guys is really handy. When you come in here the first time, you're going to see everybody's print box is checked. Okay, instead of coming through here and saying, okay, these people have emails, I'm going to check them, but I don't need to print, so I'm going to uncheck that. Instead of doing this, you can set up the software to automatically check email for those who have it and then only print for those who don't. All right, so let me show you what I mean. Over here on the right, it says on selected, check print or email. Then there's this little checkbox that says check print if no email address. All right, that's the key. I'm going to check that box. I'm going to come down here at the bottom. I'm going to click uncheck print for all. And then I'm only going to click check email for all. And when I do that, as you can see now, it checked my email people and then it checked my print people. So it's a really quick way to get just the emails going and not a printed version for people. All right. Once this looks the way you want it, and you have everybody checked to email that you want to email, down here at the bottom, you're going to hit print/email statements. It's going to tell you how many people it's going to email. I'm going to say 14 givers. I'll say yes. And it's going to then start my email process, and then it's going to pull up a print preview for the people who aren't getting the emailed statement. Okay, so here's the print preview of everybody who didn't have an email address. Again, I can come up here, hit my printer icon, and send those to my printer. And then back on this screen, it's going to give me my progress bar. It does send each email out separately. So if you have a bunch of people who have emails, this process is going to take a little bit of time. Okay, that's what saves us from spam, everybody just getting fired out at once. It's going to have to send each email out separately. Once it's done, it's going to say emailing completed. Click OK to view the results. I'm going to say OK. And then it's going to give me my email log. It's going to tell me how many were sent, and then it's going to give me a list of each one that was successful. Any ones that were unsuccessful would be listed here, but as you can see, I didn't have any, so I'm good to go on my emailing. And that's it. That is the process for emailing out donation statements. One more thing I do want to show you. It's at the top of page 4 in the document. If you find you come in here and we're on Trevor, for example, and I'm like, I know Trevor has an email. You go look in membership, you can see Trevor does in fact have an email address. But in here, it's still saying none. What you can do is kind of force Church Windows to resync or update, if you will. Here on the email tab, or you can get to it up at special functions, there's this set default email for givers. Go ahead and click that. And right here it says mass assign default email field from membership. Right now it's set to none. If yours is set to none, you're going to want to hit the down arrow and you're going to have to choose which specific email address field from membership you want donation statements to pull from. Okay, so in my membership module I have an email address field, but I also have a other email address field. By choosing my regular email address field, it's now going to go in and it's going to change all membership givers who currently have no default email or none as their default to email address. I'm going to say OK. Make sure you hit save. Don't cancel, hit save. And then now this screen, anybody else who had a none here but has an email, it's going to go in, it's going to rebuild it, and you're going to have more email options available for you for those people. So that is everything I wanted to go over with you today.